everyone. So I just want to make this video today because I've gotten a lot of responses, a lot of comments on my race realism video where I tried to explain my thoughts on race realism. And by the way, those were just my thoughts. I wasn't trying to make giant scientific claims. Yeah, my details are a little sketchy because guess what? I was just doing it based off the knowledge I have throughout my entire life, you know, in college and different things I know about biology and genetics and epigenetics and stuff like that. There are things that I have to research. And at this point, because I've gotten so many, like, negative comments about this, you know, these videos that I made on race realism, specifically, people have an issue with me talking about fish and that I overemphasize fish. Well, I don't know if you can overemphasize something that's very critical, a nutrient that's very critical to the development of the human brain. And omega-3 fatty acids are really, really important to that. Now, fish are not the only place where you can get omega-3 fatty acids. There's other sources, such as seeds of different types of plants and stuff like that. I think maybe hemp seeds have omega-3s. I'm not sure. See, this is stuff I would have to research. And one of the things I'm planning on doing in the future is researching a lot of this stuff because I find this topic extremely interesting. Now, what I also found interesting is the response to it. My essential argument is that intelligence is not based on race, okay? It's based off of what happened with your specific ancestors. And maybe I didn't make that point clear enough, but I'm basically getting compared to a social constructionist, which is not what I am. A social constructionist says that everything about us is constructed by society. I don't agree with that at all. There are certain things that we have to have, like we have to have a stable family unit and enable for us to have a stable society. That's not socially constructed. That's something that needs to happen. You have to have stability for there to be a society and stuff like that. I'm not a social constructionist. I understand that some of what we have to do as a species to make ourselves successful and have a peaceful, functioning society, you have to do traditionally. You have to have certain things. Some of our genetics, the way that we work as people, the way that civilization has to work, those things are not socially constructed. Those things are necessarily for there to be a society. Now, so I'm not a social constructionist at all. I do believe that certain things that we participate in are socially constructed. Like, I don't know. I don't even know an example of this because I haven't thought about it. See, I'm not a social constructionist at all. I don't have any examples. Let's say but okay, let's do a completely neutral sort of, I say neutral, I'm going to piss people off with this too, but the Democratic versus the Republican Party. I'm sorry, but the differences between those two, socially constructed. They're essentially the same fucking assholes. The neocons and the liberal libs are completely the same types of people. They want to fuck us over, they want to start wars, and they're corrupt, shitty people in general. But because of the media and specifically of like cable news and stuff over the past, I don't know, 50 years or so, however long cable news has been around, they have socially constructed Democrat versus Republican, even though they're essentially the same party. Not essentially, like, they obviously operate differently. But if you look at, like, their actions and what they've done over the past few, you know, presidencies, you think George Walker Bush, Bill Clinton, the Daddy Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and then Obama, You look at those four, I don't see any real difference between them. They all wanted to increase the power of the state. They're all assholes. They all wanted to start wars. Like, what was it with Daddy Bush? It was, what, the Gulf War, right? And then, I don't know if Bill Clinton started any wars, but he sure as hell did have a lot of corruption. You know, and he repealed, during his presidency was the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, which, guess what? That was the cause of what happened during George W. Bush's, along with shit that he did too. But the repealing of the Glass-Steagall Act is what allowed what happened at the end of George W. Bush's presidency. And George W. Bush sat there and he kept, like, wanting more and more of a police state. And then Obama gets in, he wants more and more of a police state. Nothing changes. The construction of Democrat versus Republican at this point has been a social construction. Completely. That is not biological. That is not genetic. It's not even IQ based necessarily, because it's all propaganda. So that's something that I would consider socially constructed. Something I do not consider socially constructed is the family unit. The family unit is necessary for society to exist. There's a difference. Society did not construct the family unit. The beginnings of the tribe and the family unit and things like that constructed society. So the fact that we have to live together and work together in order to survive, the fact that we are mentally and physically need other people. I mean, the vast majority of you do get some of those guys like the mountain men out there who like to live by themselves, but the vast majority of us, for our mental health, we need communication with other people. We need to connect and be in groups with other people. That's why there's so much tribalism. Obviously, there's a genetic component. I am not a social constructionist. There's a lot of things that can be explained through genetics. But you have to also look at our history and our evolution. I'm talking about environment having an impact on our genetics, which are then passed down. Did we start as human beings being social creatures? Well, yeah, I think so. Chimpanzees, which supposedly we come from a creature kind of like the chimpanzee. This is what modern science has been saying for a very, very long time. So I'm not going to question that, okay? Right now, that's not what this video is about. But if you look at, like, chimpanzees, are they social creatures? Yeah. Do they exist in family groups? I have no idea. But they exist in groups that live together and you know, mate together. You look at, like, other primates. Other primates live in groups. We are a primate, so to speak. Of course, we live in family groups. It's natural. It's genetic. It's what we need to build a healthy, functioning society. Without a stable family unit, you do not have a healthy, functioning society. Okay? So I'm not a social constructionist. I'm just not. I don't even know where this person got it. It was a comment that was left that basically compared me to a leftist social constructionist. And they had a picture of Pepe, so I responded with, I don't know, I refuted it, basically told him he was being a straw man, and then at the end I was like, Chatelet, peace and love, your Kekistani sister here. And these idiots, they're so fucking stupid, they don't even listen to what I am trying to say. My point is not about the fish. My point is not about the genetics. It's not, it's about, the whole point is about that it's a mixture. It's a mixture between environment, so where you're located in the world. If you're located in the desert, in an isolated spot where you're not getting a lot of information, you don't have to interact with a lot of different people, and your life is fairly simple and not that complex because you're doing the same damn thing day after day after day after day after day to survive, yeah, that doesn't leave a lot of space for growth. It doesn't leave a lot of space to expand your mental abilities, because you just don't have as much it's like input-output. I get a lot of input because I live in a modern civilized world where we have internet. Do you know how much input I'm getting into my brain every single day? I get more information into my brain than the average person in medieval Europe got in their entire life. Do you get that? I can go online and read about anything. I can read about metallurgy. I can read about glass. I can read about electromagnetism. I can read about the planets. I can read about geography and geology, and anything that I want to know about, I have access to it. Think about somebody in sub-Saharan Africa where they don't have internet. They live in a violent region with unstable situations. And a lot of places in Africa are very unstable. Yeah, they're going to have a lower IQ. I'm going to have a higher IQ. It does not have to do anything with race. It has to do with their environment. They are isolated. They do not have access to as much information. This is another reason why maybe the Greeks were as intelligent as they were. Because, you know, like for instance, who was it? Is it Aristotle? Maybe it was Pythagorean. But it was the Greek philosopher. He was a Greek philosopher. I think it might have been Pythagorean. But he went traveling. He went traveling all over the place. And he was at a good spot to do that. Greece was a really good spot to take off and go travel to other civilizations because it's right there on the water. You can travel by boat. And so, yeah, he went out and he explored different areas. He went to Egypt. And then he spent his time learning and studying. This is why Aristotle, or whoever it was, Pythagorean, Aristotle, whoever the hell it was, that's why him specifically was so intelligent. And he brought these ideas back to Greece and started teaching his own group of people, you know, and they spread the ideas. Now we have the Pythagorean theorem, which explains how you solve an equation for, like, a right angle, you know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Everybody knows this. This is really simple geometry nowadays, but back then it wasn't. Back then it was sacred knowledge, right? So he was putting more input in and spreading these ideas, and ideas making a group more intelligent. Using your brain then translate to your genes through epigenetics. Look, this is not racist. This is not post-constructionist. This is not postmodernist. This is just me thinking through the possible influences on human behavior, human intellect. Not even getting into our composition as people in terms of bodies and stuff like that. Of course, environment's going to have an effect on how we look as well. But here's what I've never said. I've never said, other than jokingly, that another race is superior to another. I have jokingly said that the Asians are superior. Mainly because I happen to like the Asian culture, and my dad has very positive views on Asian people. I have an aunt who's South Korean. I love her to death. She makes really yummy food and lots of kimchi. My dad loves the kimchi. She'll make kimchi out of, like, anything. It's pretty impressive. You go over there, their entire fridge is just filled with jar after jar of different types of kimchi. Cabbage kimchi, vegetable kimchi, all different types of kimchi. My point was, with that joke, was to make fun of myself. And somebody actually took that serious. They're like, oh, you're not for race realism, but you think that the Asian race is superior? No, you asshole. I immediately said that I was joking. Love people and how they love to strawman you. They don't listen to all your words either. They just want to pick out little bits and pieces. Oh, you're a race realist. You think that the Asians are superior. No, I don't. I just don't understand the anger with people. Like, this one guy responded with, the UK actually doesn't have that high of an IQ. And I'm like, not my point. That was really not my point. My point was not to talk about which group of people nowadays has the higher IQ. But you have to look at the historical context of specifically the English. The English were really, really intelligent. And guess what? They had access to omega-3 fatty acids because they ate fish a lot, because they lived, they're an island, right? Okay. Not saying that everybody who eats fish is going to become intelligent, but the English people, having access to omega-3 fatty acids from fish in the ocean, and what they chose to do with their societies and stuff, they built the English Empire. Do you know how much intelligence it takes to run a giant empire like that? You're not going to get that out of somebody with the IQ of 70. Okay, if you look at modern westernized civilizations, the IQ of the average Westerner is around 100. This makes perfect sense. Now, you're going to have people below that number. We have people here, white people, who've lived in Western civilization for a very, very long time, and those groups of people still have low IQs. Think trailer trash. Think dumb as shit, dumb as rock trailer trash. Okay? I'm saying there's white people who are dumb as shit and violent as well, okay? They're dumb as fucking rocks, and it has to do with partly with the instability of being poor, not having enough nutrients, and their environment that they grew up with, okay? If you're in a violent trailer park, okay? Like, some white areas are really, really shitty, okay? It's not just a black problem. It's not a race problem. It's a group problem. You cannot, and here's the thing, you can't compare people from one trailer park to another either. You can't compare one inner city group of say, inner city black people who are having a hard time, saying like Detroit. You can't compare them to the ones in Chicago. Each community has its own separate issues. Some issues, like the drug war, exacerbate it for certain areas, and I'm not saying there hasn't been racism on the part of the U.S. Government towards different groups of people in the past. Obviously there has, but that's not my argument. I've never been arguing anything having to do with actual race. I'm trying to argue against racism. I'm trying to say that no, if we change the environment for certain people, say you take a group of sub-Saharan Africans out of Africa and you give them proper nutrition, you give them proper education, and you start to teach them, over time, as they use their brains, as their social situation changes because they have to interact with more people, and in order to survive, they need to be able to communicate and deal with those people effectively. There are so many different factors to why a civilization would be more successful or more intelligent than another. But I don't understand the anger that I get. I don't understand the anger when I say, yeah, this specific group has a low IQ. This specific group has a higher IQ. 100 versus 70? That's a huge difference. Yeah. I consider the IQ of 100, which is average for the Western civilizations, to be high IQ. I'm just talking average IQ here for Western society. Now, if you look at an ISIG-related group in sub-Saharan Africa who has 70, like, it's not because of their race, it's because of their situation, it's because of their environment, it's because of their immediate ancestors. It has nothing to do with race. It is partly genetic, and I'm not going to disagree with that because I'm not a social constructionist, and I'm not a postmodernist. But the thing is, racism isn't useful. Yet racism is a detriment to our societies. Now, cultural discrimination is very, very important. You want to have a homogeneous culture. Different racial groups, in my opinion, don't affect culture. They only affect culture when they try to impose a different culture on the one there. But if anybody of any racial group were to come into a white society, so westernized society, and they were to assimilate, their skin tone should not be a problem. If they're assimilating, if they're working, if they're adding and contributing to society, their skin tone, their race, their facial construction, their bone structure, their phenotypical type should not matter. That is my entire point. If you come into our culture, you're intelligent enough to assimilate, and you want to assimilate, that's really, really good. That is really good, and racism should be thrown out the window. Cultural discrimination does need to happen, though. Some cultures are better than others. I'm sorry, that's just fucking true. A civilization that promotes freedom and an open society, like the United States has been attempting to do. I'm not saying that the United States has ever been successful at this, mind you, but what it has been attempting to do over its long, long period of, 200 plus years of existence, we have tried to have as open and free of a society as possible, and we get very, very angry when the U.S. government tries to take too much power. This is why we're having the quote-unquote second American Revolution, to quote Alex Jones. He's just funny to watch. You can't believe half the shit he says, but like around 4th of July, it's like, yeah, he's so patriotic, and he's boisterous and fun to listen to. I'm sorry, he's infotainment. He's interesting. I just don't understand why people are getting so mad about something that really shouldn't be a controversial view. The view that our race is determined by both, not race, but like the traits of various groups of people, based off of environment, based off of behavior. I'm not even saying social construction. I'm saying the specific behavior of your immediate ancestors. Okay? These things, and then finally genetics, because you pass these things down. The things you practice, you pass down to your children through your genetics. You really do. I don't understand why people get so upset about this. My view, I've been laughed at, or, people are just like to shit upon you, like, I don't understand it, because I'm not trying to say anything racist. I'm not trying to say anything controversial. I'm just trying to talk about the different things that influence maybe intelligence. And maybe that's where the issue is. I'm talking about intelligence. People get very, very upset about anytime you talk about intelligence and race. But my point is that intelligence doesn't have anything to do with race. So I don't know why people would get upset about it. It has to do with your specific group of people and your immediate ancestors more than it does in my thought process. You can disagree with this, but don't try to strawman me, man. Like, that's cool. That's not cool. Like, I don't know. I'm not a postmodernist. I'm not a lefty reconstructionist. I'm not a social constructionist. I'm consider myself more of a libertarian than anything else, I guess. Small government libertarian. And that means that I really don't give a fuck what race you are. As long as you're not hurting me, I'm not going to hurt you. And I'm going to treat you with the respect that anybody would deserve to be treated with. See, I'm not the type of person who's going to go, this specific group of people can't change. They can't understand abstract concepts like time, which is something that white supremacists do say about black people, is that there's groups of black people don't have abstract reasoning, so they can't understand time. I have a different approach to that whole thing altogether. If you have a civilization or a group of people who don't rely on time as much. It's like you go down to like, I've heard this. Now don't use this as, this is just an example, okay? So don't shit on me for this, but I've heard down in like more southern regions, like certain areas of Mexico and stuff, they're a lot more lax on the time. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a wedding, it's gonna be 6 o'clock at night, people start showing up at like 8. Okay, and it's not because it's not because you know, they can't understand time. It's just that things are more lax. Think if you lived in like sub-Saharan Africa and you were isolated from technology and stuff, and like, you know, like, and you don't have a watch, you don't have a conception of the 24-hour day. You know that one day bleeds into the next. You definitely have a concept of time. You know that days pass. You know that when the sun gets high and then it starts to go down, that it's going to start getting dark. There's no reason why sub-Saharan Africans can't understand time. It's just that they don't have a conception of the 24-hour day period like Western civilization has embedded into us. Okay? And we abide by the 24-hour period very well. That might be partly social construction, but the idea that specific group of people can't understand abstract thought is absolutely fucking ridiculous. No. Maybe they have a lower IQ, maybe they're more violent. There's a lot of different things. And it's not to say that every low IQ person is violent either. Clearly, no. But I'm talking about tendencies, I'm talking about all these things, and there's so many different factors to intelligence, and there's so many different factors that could affect bone structure. There's so many different factors that could affect so many different parts of what makes you you as an individual. But my main point is it has to do with your ancestors, not anybody else's, not the racial construction of your group of people, but your ancestors, your specific ancestors, the ones that you can trace yourself back to. It has to do with their behavior, what their genetics were, what their environment was. It doesn't have to do with race. It's not racism. Racism is pointless. If you have a problem with this, you're a racist. If you have a problem with me saying that intelligence is not racially based, you are a racist. I'm sorry. There's just no other way around it. I don't understand people's anger or their criticisms of the pointless little points that I make, when the entire point is like, it's like, sorry to burst your bubble, but these people aren't actually as intelligent as... No. I wasn't saying that they were the most intelligent. I wasn't saying they were even, like, genius level intelligent. I'm saying they're average intelligent, which is high compared to somebody with low intelligence. Okay? High versus low is relative. It's not this defined thing, right? And you have to even look at, like, the way that we determine IQ to understand this partly as well, because IQ changes from generation to generation. 100 is average. And when I say 100 in Western civilization, you have to look at what we have going on right now. Okay? 100 back when, say, the European Empire was going on, would have been different. Things change. 100 is what you get when you average them all together and you find the mid-range. Geniuses, they have like an IQ of above 140, 160, something like that. Mentally handicapped, I'm trying to find the most politically correct word for that. I was going to say retarded. But the mentally handicapped people, they have an IQ, you know, around 65, 70. And that's not to say that the sub-Saharan Africans are stupid or retarded or mentally handicapped. obviously their 100 is going to be different than Western civilization's 100. It's just that their 100 is lower than maybe a Western civilization, right? Because they don't have access to the information, they don't have access to the technology, they don't have access to the resources, they don't have access to the nutrients. And then in Africa right now, you also have like the AIDS epidemic going on. This is something I was talking to my father about. Because I find this topic interesting, and he made a really, really good point. If you're having a situation where you have a massive epidemic of like AIDS or some other plague like Ebola or just general starvation, or cholera, for instance. Like, cholera is an issue in Africa, okay? You can get it from drinking bad water sources. And if you don't have the resources, like maybe you don't have wood that day to boil your water, but you're thirsty and you need water to survive, the people over there just don't have the right resources. They don't have a situation where they're able to increase their intelligence. This is why I say it's not racist. This is intelligence is not based on race. I hate the concept of race altogether. Here's the deal. If I went to sub-Saharan Africa, theoretically, not that I would ever do it, but if I were to, and I met a man who was sub-Saharan African, and we had sex, I could get pregnant. We're the same goddamn species. And I guess that's my entire point. I don't like the concept, and people can call me a fucking leftist if they want, but this does not make me a leftist. It just makes me me. But I don't like the idea of race. I don't see the point of it. All it does is it creates this tribalistic behavior that makes it harder for other people to come into that situation and try to improve the situation. And people are probably going to be like, oh, the white person has to come in and improve the situation. Oh my god, what an impressive piece of shit. Not an impressive piece of shit. Why the fuck wouldn't you go into sub-Saharan Africa and go, we're gonna give you proper nutrients, or we're gonna help you farm your... It's actually better if you teach them how to do agriculture, or something like that. You want to give them... It's like, it's the whole thing, like, giving a man a fish versus teaching him how to fish. If you teach a man how to fish, he can feed himself repeatedly. And so the idea is that you can come in and teach different groups of people ways to better themselves. And this doesn't mean like going in there and building infrastructure that they're not going to be able to handle. It means going in there and going, okay, well, what are you currently doing, and what minor improvements can we make on your life right now to help you get to a point where eventually, as time progresses, your civilization, your little group is going to eventually be able to come back into the more global civilization. And I'm not talking about globalism specifically. I'm talking about the global civilization that is developing via the internet. Some of it, I don't understand the criticisms, because I don't think I'm saying anything controversial. I really don't think that saying racism is bad is controversial. I really don't think that saying race realism is pointless is controversial. I don't think that saying that intelligence and other phenotypical appearance type things are based off of environment, behavior, and genetics. I don't think there's anything controversial in that. maybe the points and the examples I were using were not as well explained as they should have been, but that's no reason to look at the entire argument and go, you're just shit, you're sorry to burst your bubble, you're hilarious, I watched this video for 2 seconds and decided that I hated your guts, or something like that. No one's ever said that, but someone did say that they watched my video for like a minute and immediately disliked it. It's like, you didn't watch the video, you have no idea what my argument is. You have no idea that my argument is people should respect each other, should treat each other well, because race is pointless. Race is fucking pointless. Do we have genetic variation in our species? Hell fucking yeah, we do. You are not gonna get a species that does not have genetic variation unless it's completely inbred. You look at like a species like the cheetah, for instance. Cheetah does not have very much genetic diversity. The reason why scientists think this happened, though, is because at some point something happened to the cheetah population and they were left with only a few breeding pairs. That would explain the lack of diversity in the cheetah population. If you think about our human populations, however, we have a lot more fucking humans, okay? There are a lot of fucking humans. And when you move from one area to the next and you spend thousands and thousands of years in that area, the environment's going to have an effect on your phenotypical type. Okay, and odds are you're going to end up breeding in with whatever group of people was there to begin with, too, you know? And you have people who are isolated from each other, especially way back, you know? Like, think Europeans versus Africans. Okay, why did they not intermingle very much? Why did they not breed very much? Probably because there was a giant ocean and a lot of fucking land between the Europeans and the Africans. This is why different genetic variations happen. It's because groups do not intermingle. If all these groups were constantly intermingling with each other, there wouldn't be so much racial difference. Okay? But, like, you even have genetic differences between the Germans and the English. The Germans and the English are not genetically the same. There is genetic variability even within the same racial groups. The Norwegians, they're not the same as the Germans. The Germans are not the same as the Italians. The Italians are not the same as the Spanish. The French are not the same as... It's a little bit further away than Belgium. The Poles, okay? They're just not. Because these regions in Europe were isolated from each other. They were their own fiefdoms. They were their own kingdoms, you know? And the people there bred together, but they didn't breed a lot with other groups of people. This is one of the other reasons why there's so much genetic variation between different groups of people. There's so many different factors to this that if I tried to go through everything, this video would be way longer than it is. It's almost 40 minutes as it is. It's like, I don't even know where to start with all of the possible effects that you could have on why your phenotypical appearance would be different, or your intelligence would be different, or your abilities would be different. Hell, we're even talking about muscle structure. I mean, height, weight. There's so many different factors that you have to think about. And my point is it has to do with behavior, environment, and genetics. There is a mixture between all of these things. And I don't think that's something that's controversial. I really don't think so. So I don't understand the criticism. I don't understand the anger. If I'm wrong about a specific example, that's fine. But unless you can prove to me that I am wrong, such as prove to me that omega-3 fatty acids, which was my point about the fish, prove to me that omega-3 fatty acids does not increase intelligence. It's one factor. It's one factor that I brought up. And it's an important factor. It really is. It doesn't mean that's the only source of omega-3 fatty acids. If you had an agricultural community that was growing some sort of seed product that also has omega-3 fatty acids in it, yeah, their brains are going to increase in size. Of course they are. I never said that wouldn't happen. I never said that people who don't eat fish are not as intelligent. I'm saying that it is a factor. People don't understand the differences between factors and causes. Like, it's a factor that can cause intelligence, but it's not that's not the only cause. What causes your level of intelligence is the behaviors, the environment, and the genetics of your ancestors. That's what influences this all. And sorry if that's controversial. I don't think it is. I think it's a perfectly reasonable argument against racism and against race realism. But it does need to be replaced with something else. You do have to have a group realism. You go, okay, this group of people, the sub-Saharan Africans, they tend to be lower IQ. Why is that? What? And I think, this isn't a white person thing, you idiots, by the way, but I do think that we should go in and try to help them. I do think we should go in and try to educate them. Maybe help them develop different agricultural practices. Hell, I haven't even gotten into like something like cannabis and psychedelics, and that's another theory on why certain groups of people are more intelligent than others. I haven't even gotten into psychedelics, and there's so many different factors. There's so many. It has very little to do with race. It has to do with your immediate ancestors. I'm just frustrated with the criticisms because I'm not getting good criticisms. I'm getting shitty criticisms that are focused on not the argument, but the minor details that mean nothing. Like, okay, maybe right at this particular moment in time, the UK's population does not have a high IQ from the Western perspective. You have to look at the fact that there's been a lot of immigration. So you have an influx of people with different genetics, different levels of IQ. I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying that this is a factor. You also have a lot of shit going on in the UK right now. People are scared. People are hiding. There's terrorist attacks all the time. Think of the Manchester terrorist attack, for instance. There's instability right there. You have to assume, did the education system change? Maybe. If it became so more socialized, if more bureaucratic, the education system could have completely fallen apart. I mean, there's so many different factors. So many different factors. It's impossible to talk about all of them in one video. I don't know. What I'm gonna probably end up doing is, doing quite a bit of research and trying to make my points more coherent, but it's also going to end up being like a series of videos because there's way too much to consider. There's way too much to think about. You know, I actually started working on this a little bit, just getting my thoughts out and thinking about things that I should be researching and stuff, and in the amount that I've figured out that I really have to research, I don't even know. Like I can go in here and read to you some of the stuff that I've decided that I need to go ahead and research. My computer's fucking slow though. Oh, it's actually right there. So, come on, open, you son of a bitch. Fucking My computer's being a cunt right now. It's super slow. I fucking hate this goddamn thing. I need a new computer. I'm too poor to go buy one though. I'm like way too fucking poor. God damn it, just open, you piece of shit. Sometimes yelling at the computer helps. I don't know what you guys think about technological abuse, but I'm more than for hitting your computer when it's being retarded and screaming at it. Motherfucker, piece of shit! What? File in use? How is it locked for editing? Ugh, piece of shit. I do not understand that. Another user? I'm the only fucking user, you piece of shit. God damn it. Why the hell would it do that? What the fuck? Asswipe. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway. So, some of the stuff that I need to research. So, first one is epigenetics, because I need to know more about epigenetics. Specifically, the way that it works and whatnot. There's a way in which the DNA actually unravels itself and relocks itself in certain ways. And here's the thing. We don't know everything about genetics. We don't know about half the shit that our DNA is there for. There's quote unquote just a shit ton of junk DNA, but if you look at the way that epigenetics works, I don't think it's junk DNA. I think it's DNA that unlocks and relocks based off of the environment. Another thing I wanted to look up was the classification of different races, because I know that there's like the Caucasoid race, there's the Negroid race, and then the Asiatic races, and I don't know, I thought there was 4 or 5, but I can only remember 3, so it's something that I need to look up. Especially if we're talking about race realism, it's good to know what we're talking about. The other thing that I wanted to look more into is world history. There's megalithic structures all over the world. There's this idea that there was a cataclysm all over the world. So if we had maybe a global society, like some people suggest, and right now I'm not going to make an opinion on it because I haven't done the research, but if there was a worldwide civilization, there was a cataclysm, and then you just have to think about, well, what would the difficulties be in rebuilding? And so you have to think about that too. I also wanted to look at the rise and fall of more modern civilizations, and why is this? It's because as time moves forward, things changes, and when you have the rise and fall of civilizations, it changes that area. It changes those people. I mean, you look at the Romans when they started off as this small group of people, and as their empire grew and got out of control and became multicultural and multi-ethnic and stuff like that, they started doing different practices. That, you got the gladiators. It's, bread and circuses. And that was the end of the Roman civilization and stuff like that. So I think it's good to look at the rise and fall of more modern civilizations for the effects of what that rise and fall has on the population in terms of their genetic and cultural and whatever else sort of situation. And then I wanted to also research current day situations throughout the world. As I said, AIDS epidemic in Africa, starvation in Africa, isolated groups, extremist ideologies, tyrants and dictators. There's so many different things. And then, in a completely different section, I also want to look up factors that influence intelligence. This is something I'm really, really interested in. And one of my things is looking up more information on saltwater fish, omega-3 fatty acids, and brain development. And my thing is, like, you got, like, krill that have really high omega-3 fatty acid, and then other fish come, they eat the krill, and those, they intake the fatty acids and stuff like that. And then, another thing was I wanted to do some research on boat building and how complex it is, and the different, things that you have to have for boat building. And this would probably include some sort of complex trading network as well. I also wanted to look at what the proper nutrients are for a better brain, because I know that omega-3 fatty acids aren't the only thing. I also wanted to look at other factors that increase and decrease intelligence based on the environment. My dad also brought up this, when I was talking to him about it, he brought up the fact that communities have to be have to get to a certain size before people are able to start specializing in different things. And so, yeah. And then I wanted to look up phenotypical appearance. So, bone structure, skin tone, facial features. And I'm going to bet that those all have to do with essentially environment. And then some of this stuff is some of my thoughts, which are probably going to be more thought out once I'm actually able to do the research. So one of the questions that I kind of want to ask, and I already have an opinion on this, of course, is how should we view race then? Is genetic diversity between groups of people inherently bad? I don't think so. Is human genetic diversity good? Well, yes and no. It's a cause of a lot of tribalism, but you don't want to have a stagnant situation. You don't want inbreeding, so genetic diversity is really good. And the last thing that I have here is, for my thoughts, is where do we go from here? And then, I was learning about, like, for instance, the Irish in America. When the Irish first came over to America, they were filthy creatures, okay? They were disgusting, filthy creatures. They would live in their own little communities. In my opinion, the civilization was essentially going through a massive depression themselves. And but over time, as they lived in the United States, they went from being the most hated, like one of the most hated groups in the United States, to being politicians and running for political offices and coming into positions of very high power. And these fuckers were hated, signs of, like, no Irish wanted and stuff like that. And they are able to come in, assimilate, and through their hard work, come to a successful spot in life. And then I wanted to do more research on, the historical and the current day situation with African Americans, because the current situation in some of the black communities, it was really, really shitty. You got, like, Detroit, you got, like, Chicago, you got these places where there does need to be some help done, okay? And so I wanted to do some more research on the current plight of African Americans in our country. And then, there's got to be other groups like this in other countries, where it's like specific groups within that country are probably not doing as well as other groups within that country for whatever reason. And each one of these groups, it's going to be a different reason. Why are the African Americans not doing well? Well, you can look at it, the drug war, you can look at whatever racism was going on in the past. I know that I'm not saying that that African Americans should blame white people for their issues nowadays. What I am saying is that there was effects in the past that have an impact on, the generations of people. And the thing is not to give them reparation. It's not to allow the racism that they're displaying. The point is to go into to try to alleviate the problems. The thing with these types of situations is you want to alleviate problems. You don't want to give them shit. You want to alleviate their issues so that they can go forth and do other things. And then the drug war would be nice. And you know, if you want to know more about like the drug war and stuff like that, you should really go look at like Six Hexenhammer 666, because he does an amazing job arguing against the drug war and stuff like that. There's other multiple factors and stuff like that, and so the point is to alleviate some of this stuff so that they can start getting their shit together and whatnot, and you know, not letting them rely on welfare and stuff like that, and not treating them like children, because they're not children, they're people. They're human beings who, if you leave them to their own devices, they'll eventually figure this shit out. They'll eventually decide that, no, living in a family structure is probably the most stable environment to raise children. It's the least stressful situation to raise children. One of the things my sister told me after she had her baby was, don't have a baby until you're married. It is so much fucking work. This is what she told me over and over again. So I think that you would start to see, if you just let things, you know, I'm not saying let the criminals go, not let the violent people go, but like if you decrease like the drug war and you actually make like the education system in these areas better. That doesn't mean more bureaucracy, by the way, but actually go into these communities and try to make the infrastructure better so that the students have more resources and help if they want to like continue on and stuff like that. And I'm not saying this like go spend a shit ton of money. I'm saying reform things, and that doesn't mean throw money at the problem. Not what I'm arguing for. The whole point is that if you have to look at people group by group, okay? You have to look at people by their ancestors, their immediate ancestors, and you go, okay, was this person, what type of environment was, you know, like the ancestors of this person? My particular ancestors, a lot of my ancestors were farmers. I'm really good with plants, okay? I really love working out in the garden. I love planting. I love clipping. I love doing just shit outside. I think that's part of my genetics. Not everyone has the same ancestral background, but me specifically, my genetics make me like plants a lot. Make me like to garden a lot. My grandparents were really, really big into gardening and flowers and stuff like that. A lot of my ancestors were. So it makes sense for me to be very interested in gardening and growing stuff and whatnot and so on and so forth. I think this is like the least racist view you can take on it. It's your specific ancestors. Okay? If you can be black, and if your ancestors were intelligent people who worked hard to build up, you know, their wealth and educate their children and educate themselves, you're going to be more intelligent. It's just what's going to happen. It doesn't matter what your race is. I don't know how many times I can say this, but this is not a controversial issue here to say that racism is bad. Racism is really, really bad. And one of the reasons why is because the genetic variations between different groups of people are just that, between different groups of people, not different races of people. Okay? And we can all interbreed. We're all one species. It's not like we're different from each other. We're all the same. Okay? And we gotta start treating each other like that and start showing each other love. It's not to mean that we're not going to go bomb the shit out of terrorists and crap. I actually think we should. Go bomb the shit out of ISIS, go drop a few more MOABs and get that fucking Kim Jong-un out of North Korea. Fucking dictator asshole. And I'm not saying that, you know, a particular nation has to be responsible for it, but I'm saying that if you look at different groups of people and you try to actively, you know, do certain things to make the population more intelligent, I don't think it'd actually take very long to raise a group of population's intelligence from 70 up to 90 or 100. I really don't think it would take that long. And so I don't know. I don't understand why people get upset about this. I don't know why this is controversial to say that the differences between us is based off of environment, genetics, and behavior. These three things, I think, are very influential in terms of how different groups of people form. Okay? So, if you have a problem with the argument itself of the genetic variations we have are based off of behavior, environment, and genetics, if you have an issue with that, I want to know why, and please be specific. And if my examples are off because I haven't done the research yet, I don't know what to tell you. I can't fucking know everything in the world. I can't fucking know every single piece of information there is out there regarding this information, you know, this situation, especially when I haven't done a lot of the research and I'm just trying to share my thoughts on it. So, but if you have a criticism of like, no, it's purely genetic, no, it's purely social construction, no, it's purely behavior, no, it's purely environment, I want to know why. I want to know why it's not a mixture of the three. I want to know why you think that race matters. I want to know why you think that we should treat other groups of people different from ourselves. I want to know why. So, yeah. If you have a real criticism on what I'm actually arguing, I'd love to hear about it. But if you're just going to strawman me and call me a post-construction or a social-constructionist and a postmodernist and all this stupid shit, it's like, no! I'm not trying to rewrite world history here. I'm trying to understand myself what the different factors are that make us different and makes us have a variety of different genetic variations. Okay? That's not a bad thing to do. It's just more knowledge. I really don't know what else to say about it other than that. I hope you guys all have a great day. Chatelet. Peace and love.